Hi everybody, I'm Marja from So Local, and welcome to your video tutorial on how to make this very cute bunny. First, I'm going to show you all the things that you need for making the bunny. Piece of printed fabric for inside the ears, a piece of plain fabric for the body, a little tiny piece of white felt for the muzzle, thread, black embroidery floss for sewing the nose and the mouth. There's a little needle there too. These are safety eyes and the back of the safety eyes. And this is a little piece of stabilizer that's going to go behind the safety eyes just to make it extra secure. Also, some stuffing. And on top of that, you'll need a few little tools, such as scissors for cutting out your fabric. I also have a pair of paper scissors here because you don't want to use your good fabric scissors for cutting out paper. It makes them dull. And these are some pins. You can also use glue. This is fabric glue that washes out with water, and you can sew through it without gumming up your needle. But if you don't have that, you can use pins. This is a fabric marker that washes away with just a bit of water. So that's what we're going to use for marking the nose. And if you don't have one of these, you can use a regular pencil too and just wipe it out. It's a little bit harder. I also have a stick, which I'm going to use for stuffing the arms and legs. You can use a pencil. Anything that's long and pokey will do the trick. And we have instructions and a pattern. So on top of that, you need a trusty sewing machine. And let's get started. First, we're going to cut out the pattern with the paper scissors. So you'll cut around the solid line of each piece, including cutting up this dotted line right here. Okay, so all the pattern pieces are cut out, so now we can start cutting out the fabric. On the arms, we're going to need 4 of these altogether. The legs, we'll need 4 of those. For the ears, you're going to need 2 of your plain fabric and 2 of your printed fabric. The muzzle will be cut out of the white felt. And we're going to need 2 of the body pieces, and these are cut on the fold. So this dotted line right here is where the fold's going to be of the fabric. And what that means is we're going to line this edge up with folded fabric. So I'm going to open up this big piece of fabric and make just a small fold on the edge. Then I can put the fabric down right on the fold like that and pin it in place. Okay, so I've got this one cut out, and the second one is on the fold ready to cut out. This fabric is folded because we need more than one of all of these. So we're going to be getting 2 legs, 2 ears, and 2 arms, and then we're going to need to do these 2 one more time again. So put your pins in on top of your paper pattern onto the fabric, and if you're not sure how to pin, this is a good way to do it. So you can start on an angle, just push the pin down, it hits the mat or the table underneath, and then you just kind of push up and it will pop through the other end. So here's all the pieces cut out. So the next thing we have to do is transfer the marks from the pattern onto the fabric. So there's two pattern pieces that you need to put the marks on. So it's the muzzle and the body piece. So I'm gonna fold this back up. And we only need to have marks on one of these, not on both. So I'm gonna put this right back there. And so the marks we need are this big black dot, this X, and right up here where it says ear. So I'm just gonna kind of lift the paper and put a mark on both layers so that you can see where those ears have to go. Now to make this go right through onto the other side, I'm gonna stick a pin right in the center, flip it over, and then I can see where that other X has to go. So that's ready. And to transfer the marks from here onto this, if you put this over a window, you'll be able to see through it a little bit to draw the little marks on. Otherwise, you can just try to copy it yourself if you want. And because it's erasable, it doesn't matter if it doesn't work out perfectly the first time. Now it's time to embroider the nose and mouth onto the muzzle. You'll need needle, embroidery floss, and your muzzle. So you need to separate your floss because we're only going to use 2 strands for this. And this is how it works. So you can see there's 6 strands in here. I'm going to pinch one and pull that out. And it comes out with no knots. Now I'm going to do that one more time to get a second one. Put that aside. Take the 2 strands and thread the needle. Need to tie a knot at the end, one end. First stitch we're going to do is the satin stitch. And basically we're stitching a whole bunch of lines very close together across the muzzle like this. So I'm going to start over on this end from the back and make a short straight line. And then another one really close to it. And you just keep on going. So the satin stitch nose is all done, and now it's time to do a back stitch to make lines for the mouth. So starting from the back at the point, we're gonna go straight down and then come up a little ways away and fill in that gap with a stitch. And we'll do that 2 more stitches. One here here. So now we'll have to turn it onto the back and make a little knot. So I'm just gonna grab a little bit of the stitch and stick my needle through that loop. Maybe one more time. Now it's time to place the muzzle on the face. Find where you want it to go. Then you'll either pin it down or glue it down. I'm gonna use some glue. And it's time to sew. The sewing machine's all threaded and ready to go. And I'm gonna show you some tricks for sewing around corners and curves. So I'm gonna start pretty close to the edge at the bottom. Bring my needle down to see where that's gonna hit. You always want to do a little back stitch at the beginning, and that secures your stitching. So when I'm gonna turn a corner, you need to make sure that your needle is down into the fabric. So I'm gonna turn the wheel towards me to bring the needle down, lift the presser foot so I can just turn the fabric a little bit. We're gonna do that a lot. Just a lot of very small stitches. And that way you can make your corner really nice and smooth. And then at the end, another back stitch. You don't need to do a lot, just a little. Put the safety eyes in place. So you can figure out where you want your eyes to go. And make a dot. We're gonna cut tiny little holes on those dots. So you can do that a couple ways. You can fold the fabric right on the dot and take a tiny little snip out of your fabric. Make it very, very small, because you can always make it bigger, but you can't make it smaller after that. Another way to do it is with a seam ripper. Just take a little bit, pull that up, and then you can see if it's big enough to stick your eye through. You need a little bit more. Now I'm going to take the piece of stabilizer, it's called Peltex, cut it in half, and make a hole in the middle. Put that one on first, and then the back of the safety eye gets pushed in place. And it becomes quite strong. Now we're going to just trim the corners off. Now it's time to sew the arms, legs, and ears together. So match them up in pairs. Got 2 legs, 2 arms, and 2 ears. So with the ears, it's important that you're putting the good side of the fabric down. That way when you turn it right side out, we'll be able to see the pretty fabric. Pin them all together. Now we're gonna sew around each arm, ear, and leg, leaving the short end open to turn. The seam allowance for this is 1/4 inch, and what that means is the distance from the edge of the fabric to your stitching is 1/4 inch. So there's lines on the side of your sewing machine, but you can also use the edge of the foot as a guide. You want to have a little bit of a foot sticking over the edge of the fabric, just like that. That's what 1/4 inch looks like. And make sure you backstitch at the beginning and at the end of each seam. So I've got all the pieces sewn around. So now we're gonna clip into the corners, and I'm gonna take little pie-shaped pieces out of the outside curves. You have to make sure you don't cut your stitching here. But what that does is allow the seam to have space inside once it's turned right side out. So when you're done that, you open it up and push it through. This is where your pencil could come in handy. Just do it very gently so you don't poke a hole in your fabric. Now the ears aren't going to get stuffed. We're just going to flatten them out, and if you have an iron, you can iron that to make it look nice and flat. A turning tool, you can use it for the arms and legs and ears as well. You just stick this part up in there. Now it's time to stuff the arms and legs, and the trick is to use just a tiny amount of stuffing, a little at a time, especially for the ends. Put a little bit in and push it down to the end, and you can use the stick to shove it back in the end. Just do a little more. We don't want them too stuffed. We want to leave an end piece that's quite empty. That makes it a lot easier to sew. We're going to fold the edges of the ears in towards the middle like this. Pinch them closed and sew across here. Next, we're going to take the ears and attach them to the bunny's face. So the ears will go right side down where the marks are, just like this. Peekaboo. So now we're gonna sew the legs onto the bottom part of the bunny. So this is a lot easier to do if the top part of the leg is empty. So shove your stuffing way down there, and then you can place the leg here. and we'll sew those into place. Now we're gonna put the front and back together. The arms are gonna go in at the end, so don't worry about them. So the ears have to cover the face. We're gonna do it in 2 sections. First, the head, and then we'll do the bottom section. So I'm gonna lay this down like this. The legs are fine like that for now. Bunny looks terrifying. Now I can kind of see where my X's are, but I'm gonna just remark them so it's really obvious. We're gonna sew from this X up the shoulder, all the way around the head, and back to this other X. Now we're gonna sew the bottom section. So first I'm gonna shove the ears up inside the head so they're out of the way, and also put the legs in there. So we'll be sewing the bottom part of a square. So we'll start right here, go down to the corner, across the bottom, and up to here. So there's going to be an opening right in here where you're not gonna sew. We're gonna stitch that up at the end and put the arm in on both sides. Okay, so all the sewing machine part's done. The rest is stuffing and hand sewing. I'm just gonna clip the corners right here so that that corner will be nice and pointy. And we also need to do a little snip into the curve right here. Just be very careful that you don't cut your stitching. If you do, you can just go back over it and do some more. And on the outside corners, we can take little pie shapes again. So inside corners, it's a straight clip. And outside corners, a pie. I'm gonna start with the legs. Time to stuff. So a nice way to get a smooth look is to just do a little bit at a time. And we'll start with the corners up in the head. Bunny's stuffed, but still armless. Got the arms ready, and I stuffed them right to the top because unlike the legs, we want these full right to the top. We're gonna start hand sewing at the bottom part right here. We're gonna do the ladder stitch. First we need a knot. Do we have a knot? We do have a knot. So I'm gonna hide my knot by starting with my needle down lower about here. Now it's tucked in there. I'm gonna pinch these together. And I'm gonna sew up to around here, and then we'll stuff the arm in and sew around the arm. So this is how the ladder stitch works. We're gonna take one stitch on one side, and then go straight across and take a stitch on the other side. And if you do this right, it will be almost invisible, especially if your thread's a good match. It's called a ladder stitch because at first you see lines across the opening like rungs in a ladder, but when you pull them, it pulls it in tight like that. Now we're gonna stuff an arm in. Just gonna work it in there. And at first it's gonna feel a bit awkward, like your arm's gonna fall out, but once you start stitching it in, it'll be okay. Now we'll be doing little stitches into the arm, and then a stitch into the front of the body. I'm going to keep on doing this all the way around the arm. I'm going to go over to the back now. Make sure that the fabric is tucked in so you don't have a raw edge showing. So I sewed all the way around the arm and I'm back down to the armpit. I'm just going to take a couple of stitches here to make this stronger. And then we'll do a nice good knot. And I'm going to show you how to hide your knot so that it doesn't show. So I'm going to take a stitch kind of into the seam. So the needle's coming out of the seam. And I'm going to knot it right here. Take a few stitches. Now I want to kind of pull that knot inside the bunny. It's not showing too much, but if you want to hide it, you can do this. Now I'm going to stick the needle in the seam in between stitches and just take the needle out anywhere in the bunny. Pull it tight. And then I can cut the thread right here. And the knot is hidden. Bunny is done.